Alright, so up next we have the simple construction of the side view in this case, and we're going to start off with the side view because it's a little bit exciting and quite simple to draw, right, as opposed to the front view, which is a little bit of a hassle. Okay, and just like we did before, what I'm going to do is start off with a compressed oval or a compressed egg, whatever you want to call that. And here I'm drawing a circle, which is what you don't want to do, okay, so don't do that. And another thing you don't want to do is, if you are drawing an ellipse, remember that it can't be too elongated. So what you want is just something in between. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to draw something in between. And if you can't do this, I'll show you how to kind of counteract this. But for now, we're going to do that right. So a little bit compressed, not exactly a circle. We're going to go halfway and then bring this line down for the jaw. Okay, and don't worry, we'll go through all of this later on, but I'm just showing you just the basics. Okay, and then the gesture of the face, we're going to bring that one down. And then for the side of the head, we're going to bring this one up and then to the back and then connect that to the front. Okay, and that is it. That's the simple view of the head from the side. If you can get this right, this is really what I care about most. Not the complicated views that you can do, but this is the foundation for what you'll be drawing. If you can get this right, then everything you put on top of this will be correct. If you get this wrong, then everything you put on top of this, of course, will fall apart, just like a flimsy foundation. Okay, and what I'm thinking about when I'm doing this is a whistle shape. Okay, so I'm going to draw a little bit of a whistle here, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about in 3D. So that was a 2D side view, of course. Here we're doing a little bit of a 3D view from underneath. Okay, kind of the weakness of some artists. And let's go ahead and do that. So we've got the front plane over here. Okay, we've got the jaw coming back, and you'll see what all this looks like when I'm done. Here we've got some flimsy perspective on my end, but I'll fix that later on. So that's the bottom view, okay, and here we've got the jaw coming up, and then the side, right, completing the back of the head over there. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about when I'm drawing the side view, and even the head in general. This whistle shape is very, very useful. There are some caveats to it, just like with anything, but I think this is a pretty good start. So if you can draw this shape, and we'll go through all of the stuff, like I said, so we've got the front plane, the side plane, okay, there we've got kind of the eyebrows or the eyes, and then the halfway mark, which is what we'll be working with. But again, this simple shape is something you're going to want to get used to. So that's kind of what you'd blow into for the whistle. Okay, and if we wanted to, we could add a neck to this, just to kind of complete it. And before I do that, I just want to erase this because that perspective is bothering me. So just pull this back here. And we'll talk a little bit about perspective later on as well, if you guys are kind of struggling with that. This isn't a perspective course, but I do think it's worthwhile going through that. So like I said, the neck, we'll add this down, right? He's looking up. So we'll put that there, and then we've got another line here coming down, and we've got the connection to the rib cage. So there you go, right? If you can think of that, you can draw a head from the side, or even from the front in this case. So let's move on to level 2. So each of these drawings will have different levels. That was level 1, and we've got level 2 next. So what you can do is smack a circle into there, right? And then draw an oval on top of that. Because if you're uncomfortable, right, with just drawing an oval straight up, and that oval sucked, so I'm going to redraw it. So something like this, and you can see my oval is tilted up just a little bit. Okay, and again, just like we did, we're gonna roughly the center, okay, drop that line down. We're gonna bring another line for the jaw. This time we're gonna draw very lightly the gesture of the face, okay, because we're gonna draw over this with detail. So we don't want to have the line weight fighting, right, for competition. Okay, so again, we've got the zygomatic arch. Okay, and this is about halfway. So we've got halfway there, and then halfway here, and then just about a little bit more than halfway. And you can kind of go more than that if you want to. We'll pull this line up, okay, and then here is the halfway mark for the egg, right, and then here is the halfway mark again, right, for the ellipse or the egg, whatever you want to call that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. And again, we'll go through all of this stuff. This is just a demonstration, and I'll kind of walk you through how to do that. Okay, so you've got the ear hole, okay, and then the mastoid process, and again, we'll bring that all the way up. So again, kind of laying down the foundation with our level 1, and then the level 2 just adding on top of that, just with detail. But as you can see, if the level 1 is off, obviously everything on top of that will be off. Okay, getting in the eye socket, okay, or the orbit, getting in the front of the cheekbone there. And as you can see, all of these line up. Now, it can be a little bit above or a little bit below, that's okay. Okay, completing the cheekbone here, okay, the zygomatic arch. Okay, connecting my lines, making sure that I don't leave any gaps. Sometimes you can, it makes sense, but in this case, I will connect them. Okay, completing the jaw over here. Okay, and here we have the nasal bone. Just kind of constructing that, and first, before we do that, we're going to get the eyebrows or the superciliary arches, okay, and then actually completing the skull over here. You see some of my lines taper out, and then that's no problem. I just kind of darken them and then move on. Okay, so we've got the nasal bone, we've got the maxilla over here, and again, we'll go through all of these terms, but I'm just using them so you get used to them. We've got the barrel of the mouth. Okay, a little bit flimsy on my end, that's okay. And then completing the chin, or completing the jaw with the chin. And again, completing the mouth, okay, with just the opening there, just to give it a little bit of personality, I guess. And that is pretty much it, right? Here we have it, and now you know how to draw the skull. And we'll go through it a few times just so you kind of get used to it. But again, the most important shape here is that whistle shape. If you get that right, everything else on top of that will just kind of fall into place. So you're just going through some of my lines, darkening some of these areas, and yeah, again, that is pretty much it. If you want to be kind of correct, you can add this little arch here just to separate the condyle from the process, but not really useful in our case right now. We just want the big shapes, and that doesn't really add to it. So what you can do is, if you are struggling, you can bring one of the pictures I've given you, right, one of the renders, the side view in this case, you can bring it into Photoshop on a new layer, you can bring down the opacity, and what you can do is you can trace over that. Okay, so if you're a little bit uncomfortable drawing without a reference, you will have to do that eventually, but again, you can draw the circle, you can draw the oval over that, and then you can bring the jawline down, okay, complete the jawline over here, okay, or the side of the jaw, okay, connect the gesture of the face, okay, bring that down, just like we practiced. We've got the whistle shape, and as you can see, it is the most important shape. We don't care about all the little lines and the cracks or the sutures, right? Again, that's halfway, okay, that's about a half, so divided into two there, and here's roughly the halfway as well. That's where the eyebrows are, just below that actually. So here we've got the zygomatic arch again, right, drawing that in, straight line coming up, okay, pushing in and then pulling back out to complete the temporal line. That's where your temporal muscle is. If you feel on the side of your head, you clench your jaw, or clench your jaw rather, you can feel that. Here we've got the hole of the ear, okay, and we've got the mastoid process, okay, that's the bump just behind your ear, you can feel that as well. And here tracing it, but I'm not tracing to the point of exactness. I'm again keeping my hand very loose, okay, and drawing with a little bit of passion as opposed to like this nervous exactitude, right, where I'm trying to get every line exact. You don't have to do that. Just be loose with it and things will fall into place, okay? If you're tracing it, you know, you can't really go too wrong with that. And if you do, that's okay. You're going to do like hundreds of these, so don't worry about that. So again, kind of skipping some steps here and then moving back and forth. But here we have the same outcome, right? So just like that, and kind of paying attention to my line weight as well. But yeah, right, the exact same output, right? Right, you can kind of compare the two, pretty much the same. Tracing obviously easier. So now we have some sort of idea as to how the side view is actually drawn. Let's look at the technical details behind that. I did this part after the drawing because I think it makes far more sense to actually show what the outcome is without all the measurements, so you get a basic idea of what's what. Throwing a bunch of measurements at you will just have your brain think too technically before drawing, and this really doesn't do your gesture any justice. So what I try and do first is establish some sort of simple shape, a circle in this case. This gives me some sort of way to gauge the main volumes and the parts around that. Speaking of the parts around that, I will capture the outer areas next by using another simple shape. This shows me that the skull, from the side, is taller than it is deep. A note on this, artists will actually make the heads slightly taller if they can to stylize the head to be more masculine and even more feminine. So making the skull a little taller is actually preferable to shortening it. Next, I will divide the skull into main increments. In this case, the side of the skull is great for cutting into thirds. You'll notice that some really important landmarks that we've already established fall right on these lines. The bottom of the cheek, bottom of the nose, the mastoid process all fall within this range. Now of course it isn't perfect and some skulls won't adhere to all the rules, but it's a great way to control where all the forms should roughly fit in. And finally we have the smaller increments, which again will help you to establish some important areas that will line up and help you better understand how to actually draw the skull. Now not all of these increments are exact, some of them are around about a third and around about half. They're not exactly, and that's because not all skulls will exactly fit into this. And now it's your turn to draw. So just like I demonstrated in the level 1 and level 2 drawings, you can start with a compressed ellipse or oval, drop the line of the jaw down, and using the basic thirds rule, you can slowly start to build up the skull. Now this is actually very important. Don't forget about all the warm-up circles and ellipses we drew. The whole point of that was to get you ready for these skulls in the first place. So don't throw all that out the window. Make sure to actually start with the bigger shapes first, using lighter, fluid lines. Then as you get to the details and a little bit more confident, you can darken the lines. Also, no shading. Everyone in this course is totally banned from shading, including myself, okay? Whether you can shade, or you think you can shade, or you know you can't shade, either way, just don't do it. At this point, it's only a distraction and will only do more harm than good. So don't. Just don't. If you find yourself getting too caught up in the details, try to trace over a skull like I showed, without measuring, and try to feel the basic main forms as opposed to trying to capture every nook and cranny. Remember that the level 1 shapes are far more important than any of the level 2 shapes. I would rather you did the level 1s and succeeded as opposed to incorrectly drawing a bunch of level 2s. Yeah, I know you want to draw all the details, but if you can't draw something simply, your complicated drawings won't make more sense, only less sense. You're just gonna have to trust me on this one, okay? So try to do about 2 pages of skulls, around about 15 to 20 skulls, before moving on, okay? This will really help you get a gauge of the side view, and you will come back to this over and over again. So don't think you're just gonna draw 20 and then move on. You're gonna be drawing hundreds of skulls before the end of this course, easily. And I know it sounds unbelievably cheesy, but have fun doing this. If you find yourself getting frustrated and holding the pencil like you're gonna kill somebody, take 5, take 10, heck, take 15, and then come back to it, okay? These exercises are going to be a little bit of a challenge for you, for some of you, and that's okay, right? That's the point. If it's not a challenge, you're probably not learning anything. So yeah, if at any point you find yourself not having fun, being a little bit frustrated, just take a step back and come back to it. And I guarantee things will just kind of fall into place. And just remember, you're not always going to get things right on the first try. So don't go into it with that attitude, because it's only going to destroy your confidence going forward. So yeah, just have fun. And hey, that's it. Now thanks for joining me on this free version of the course. If you did enjoy what you saw here, you can check out the paid version down below. And don't forget to make use of my website for these skull templates and breakdowns. And also don't forget to post your work on my new Discord channel preferably, or post your work online under the hashtag Thavolan, or you can @ me at Thavolan on Twitter and at Thavolan3D on Instagram. All the links can be found below, and depending on the number of submissions, I'll try and get some critique videos out of them as well. I'll see you in the next one.